Right.
Live stream's about to start. Just making sure real quick. Live stream's about. Okay. So real quick, everyone, I'm putting the YouTube link into the Zoom chat. So if you have any friends who somehow can't join Zoom or they can't just come and watch with you, you can send them the YouTube link. And unfortunately, they might not be able to engage with us directly, but at the least, uh, we can glance at YouTube every now and then and see if they have any, if they posted questions there. But the main thing is, at the least they can watch. Okay, so to get started, do want to introduce real quick someone called Venkat Subramanian, and my name is Scotty Shaw. So we'll do some quick introductions, and then we'll, basically talk about our perspectives on AI. So, a little bit of my academic background. I graduated from Duke University in 2009, and since then, I've worked in various fields, including finance primarily, and or finance first initially, and then tech primarily. And I've done some stuff in other fields. I've always had an interest in doing stuff related to sports, but in the end, when it comes to the academic side, I've always really uh, very much embraced the idea of being a numbers person. Um, wasn't a stereotype or anything growing up. It was just I was just good at that stuff and I really enjoyed it. And I always thought it's important to trust your instinct, but also to train your instinct with actual numbers. And that's where you can also understand when sometimes you have to go against the numbers because your instinct's telling you this is one of those outlier situations. And that gets some deep analytics. So you can see how I can go on and on. But my point is, I just always thought it's important to understand the numbers. And I think all of you at Universal AI University in Mumbai can understand very much how, you know, you got to have numbers to do AI. And of course, you do want to train your AI and various other ML programs to eventually be able to act on their own form of instinct. But that is how I got started in the tech side of things. And also we have Venkat, and he's going to be my chat partner for this session. So Venkat, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure, Scotty. First of all, guys, very happy to be here. A bit about myself. I'm also from India, like how most of you guys are from. In India, I was in semiconductor design. I worked in Qualcomm and Synopsys for close to about 6 years. And then I came to US for my master's. So I graduated with my MBA from Georgetown. I've been working with Scotty for a few months, and I'd be, starting to work in a strategy consulting firm in the near future. And coming on with my things to do with AI, right? Obviously, even at Qualcomm and Synopsys, we've used AI to do a lot of the predictive modeling in chip design. But the kind of AI going on right now with generative AI, I think it's truly phenomenal. Uh, Probably we'll touch a little bit more on that during the talk. And I also think it's transformative in the way we work, and I can share a little bit more perspective as we go forward.
All right. And we also want to we also want to point out that there are a lot of us here in the US, but this is part of our attempt to uh I would say to try to engage all of you at Subway by saying, here's a talk that's on your timeline, it's a good time for your time zone. Also, you know, by working with your professors, we can say, here are some activities that make you feel more included, even though most of the time, most of our events have been here in the US. Hopefully you can see that through this, we are trying to, we are trying to find ways to engage your school more meaningfully. And build up to the point where you have a full hackathon experience, even though we're over here on the other side of the Pacific. Of course, just looking down the line, we would be interested to try to do something on your campus. But for now, we do want to make sure that you feel like, we're doing our best to try to reach you, even though we're not able to actually be on your campus. Obviously, Venkat, starting a new job, um, for me, trying to finish building all this stuff here before we go abroad, it does take a little bit of time. So, we do want to get started, and this is not your formal welcome to the hackathon. This is more a series of online talks beforehand, so you can think about what to build. You can't start coding until next weekend. That will be your Saturday morning. When you do your welcoming ceremony, then you can start coding. But when we say design, develop, demo, you can start designing, you can start thinking about what to build. And we want you to remember there are two requirements. One is that your project has AI or blockchain or both. The other requirement is that your project involves medicine or finance or both. So for now, just spend the next 10 days or so thinking about, or actually not 10 days, the next 7 days, just thinking about what you might want to build, how you might want to build it. Plan for your game, and then you play the game. So your coding starts next week, but this gives you a little bit of time to start thinking about what you might want to do. So if you combine that with the online orientation video, and then we'll send the participants handbook soon, our prizes document. You can also look at last year's Devpost to see roughly what the prize will look like. Hopefully that gives you some of the information you need, but then at the same time, whatever information you might want now, we'll be sending that stuff soon. So, uh, to get started, we do want to say thank you for joining us. We realize, late Friday night and early Saturday morning is not the best time, but that's how time zones are. So, hopefully you enjoy the speakers, the sessions, and of course, if you want to review anything, you'll get the YouTube links too. So, to get started, I think the main thing is I graduated from Duke in 2009. Venkat just got his MBA from Georgetown University. So obviously we have very different experiences, very different lives, and different perspectives on AI. Also coming from different countries, different cultural backgrounds. For example, my parents are from Taipei, so very clearly East Asian as opposed to South Asian. But I think a lot of us can see, whether it's throughout history or even modern events, that we're talking about South Asia and East Asia. Most of history, and obviously not always, we both of our civilizations have seen collapses and very stupid things. Uh, in fact, it's always funny. I have to point out to people that there was a Chinese emperor who actually was documented to have mental illnesses. Um, but he was the oldest son, so he became the emperor. Of course, things fell apart very quickly. But these things do happen. However, at the same time, we do come from cultures that are very well known for a lot of innovation. And I'm not saying this to mean, oh, we're better than anyone. I'm simply saying, there's a lot of civilizations that have given a lot of great things to humanity. And, we can look at our ancestors and say, yeah, they did a lot of great things. And why I bring that up is because I think, we can see with the rise of India and China right now, uh, it does kind of lead people to think, oh, maybe this is going to be a new age of discovery and innovations, especially in tech. I'm not advocating or rejecting the possibilities of golden ages. I'm simply saying you look at the talent that's coming from all these different places, it does make you think, oh, okay, there's a lot of new opportunities that our parents and grandparents didn't have. And, maybe we can build better opportunities for the future generations. So, I do want to start a little bit with, obviously, for me being out of college more, I think we should go ahead and ask a question to Venkat that all of you might understand a little bit more. Because I didn't have this. When I was a student, plagiarism meant you just copied someone's information without citing sources. We didn't have AI. I mean, I could copy things from Google or Stack Overflow, but that was not on the same level of, and not saying that anyone here has done that, but it's not on the same level of what's capable now. So, Venkat, one thing, I do want to hear from you is what were some challenges for you? Not necessarily the issue of AI plagiarism, but rather balancing, because getting an MBA, right? You have so much you have so much to do, so little time, and AI would speed things up. But how did you find the balance between using AI if you did, or your classmates versus I'm just gonna read everything?
Yeah, I mean, again, there are two parts to it, right? You could use AI to really skill yourself, which is to help with the reading part, and the second part is to use AI, to get done with assignments and so on. The second part is a little bit tricky because we were allowed to use it, which is a good thing, but not for all subjects. So it's trying to identify which professors allow it and which professors don't allow it, because I mean, sometimes using it could have implications. But coming to your part of the question that you asked, right? Again, at least personally, I'm talking about the initial versions of the model. There were some hallucinations, when you give like a long context for it to summarize to begin with, and then that. But then I think things have changed quite a bit right now. And back in 2025, before I graduated, I did use AI quite a bit to, rather than read like long passages or books, you could upload it and then ask questions and read on top of it. So I would say AI makes it a lot more efficient. So when you're short on time, probably go with AI. But then there's nothing like reading a lot, a good old book. In those cases, probably doesn't make sense. It rather you can just read your book if you want to develop a deeper understanding.
Definitely. And when you mentioned efficient, I actually thought about how for years I've always, not just for myself, but when I see other people talk about effective or efficient, I always think about where's the balance for effective versus efficient. For example, yeah, I could use AI to summarize stuff that's efficient, but then that might not be effective if I need to have a deep understanding. And that's where, of course, it's not necessarily you have 5 minutes to determine that. Usually it's, you have a group project or, in our case, creating this company, we do have to sometimes you come across a situation where it's a little bit of, okay, just get a quick idea of what to do. Okay, great. And then, oh, okay, I'm understanding I need a deeper understanding of this and this, so I'll dive deep into that. But then sometimes, kind of, certain areas just know it exists, know a little bit with, and that's efficient. Other areas it might be dig deep and master it, and that would be effective. And of course, in some ways, efficient and effective can go hand in hand. I think there's an overlap, but sometimes I also have to, at least for me, I also have to choose one or the other. And I think that's a little bit of the experience of learning to identify which one's which and what the situation dictates. Because your answer, that probably relates more to a lot of these students here. But I think my equivalent is when I'm online, and usually this is where I'll do it through Google. I might just type in. Um, so okay, here's a good example. Venkat, you remember a few meetings ago, I randomly mentioned Golden Quadrilateral, and all of you kind of had the look of, wait, how does he know about that? Part of it is because I had remembered there was something called the Golden something, and I forgot what it was, and I couldn't remember which cities were kind of the 4 points. So I just typed in the four most important cities I can think of, and that was Mumbai, New Delhi, which I think the actual city would be Delhi, but I typed in Mumbai, New Delhi, Kolkata, and Bengaluru. I accidentally guessed right but I just wasn't sure what the 4 points were. I just thought if I type in the major cities, Google will at least give me a description of, you know, I just say, here's the name of four cities, and Google will say, you've just named four important Indian cities, and, and then by chance I guessed right because at the same time, Hyderabad, that could have been another important city. But the main thing is, or it is an important city, but it could have been one of the 4 points. The main thing is that Google recognized kind of like a person, right? If I say to anyone in India, I just named those four cities, there might be initial confusion. If I get a city wrong, they might say, what are you talking about? Are you talking about the four largest cities or the four wealthiest cities? Or are you talking about, cities with the best sports teams or what is it? And I say, well, there's this highway that connects all of them. Google is like a smarter person, not the smartest person, but I think of Google as kind of like being a smarter person who knows a lot of facts. They might not be the most creative. They might not be great at conversations, but they're that friend who can, they remember a lot of random facts. And by typing in the four cities, Google told me, basically it said, these are four very important Indian cities. Here's a few more, and here's some fun facts. Their total population, they're known for this and this and this. Also, they're connected by something called the Golden Quadrilateral. And I thought, oh, right, that's it. Because I keep thinking, in English, we would probably call it the golden diamond because it's the same shape. But it's not the diamond, the golden diamond. So I kind of had to think, I don't even know how to start, you know. But you think about that wasn't really a conversation. I just typed in four city names and Google figured out here's some information that might be useful, and one of them is golden quadrilateral. And obviously, Venkat, if I'm talking to you about that, I might say, hey, Venkat, what's that highway that connects the four most important cities in India? I think it's Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, and then, I don't know, is it Bengaluru or Hyderabad? And that's where you would be able to say, are you talking about the Golden Quadrilateral? Now, I would have to do some work to say, yes, that's it. Or, I never heard the name. I don't know. And for me, I think that's one way AI works well.
True, Scotty. And also, whenever you read a new topic, right, you have a lot of questions, and it's always a lot more, I would say, effective to put in those questions in any generative tool out there, AI tool out there, and get some initial clarifications done. It helps you create a good baseline from which you can build upon. I mean, so that's something that I do on a regular basis.
Yeah, definitely. It kind of reminds me, there's some online joke where there's two characters, I guess. One person that asks the other, why do you always think AI after they answer a question? And he says, because when AI takes over the world, they'll always remember that I was always very courteous. And yeah, obviously that's a little tongue in cheek. It's kind of American humor, kind of, oh yeah, end of the world, AI's taking over. And it's funny because for decades, America has made movies where technology takes over and destroys the world. Not necessarily to say that America doesn't trust technology. I would say it's more, there are parts of America, let's be real, there is a strong element of anti-intellectualism in the US, but it's not that every American is anti-intellectualism. It's more that it's a strong enough element of American culture, so, there are movies that will play on that. But of course, a lot of times you'll see that the heroes also use technology. And I think it's more conveying the point that any piece of technology is a tool if you use AI well or not. And then that comic was kind of joking, all right, the tool has taken over, but at least the user was always kind and courteous. So the AI allows the that character to live. Um, Anyways, I think going off of that, I guess Venkat, for you, I was saying I think AI, at least in Google's case, is more that friend that knows a lot of facts. I would say there's a lot of AIs that are more than just that in some ways. For example, translation AIs. It's not just a friend that knows a lot of facts. Now, maybe it's a friend that can't do anything else. He can only speaks six, seven, eight languages. Um, or maybe she can guide where you drive anywhere in most countries in the world. But neither one can necessarily help me determine which NBA program to pursue or which basketball player is the best. So, in your experience, my most common use of AI leads me to think of it as I use it on Google to search information, and I think of it as, oh, a friend who knows a lot of information. What's your experience with AI? Do you have you been using it for job prep, or was it more to find your favorite movies? You know, if AI were a person sitting next to you, how would you describe that person?
So generally, when I use AI, right? So for example, when you work, you tend to write a lot of emails, and then structuring emails do require some thought and decision making. I use AI to draft those emails in a right way. So I mean, I could just write in a couple of prompts and get a few options rather than use all my mind space to think about it. So that's something that I do on a regular basis. Apart from that, as I said before, right, whenever I'm reading a new topic, I mean, it's natural to have a lot of questions. And when you read a book, you pretty much have to cover two chapters to get to the answer of whatever you're looking for. Whereas when you use AI as more of a companion, it gives you a directionally right answer, or also it puts you in the right direction. I mean, interestingly, just to give some perspective, there is this paper on AI. Attention is all you need. Probably the first starting paper some of the co-founders of OpenAI had written, and so on. I was trying to read it, where I read through a couple of paragraphs, hard to understand anything that's there. When you upload the paper on, I use ChatGPT a lot, ChatGPT, and ask it to explain. It made the content in a way that's much more understandable, and so on. So that's pretty much how I use AI on a regular basis.
All right. So I guess in your case, kind of a writing coach, not just writing coach, but kind of a coach in a communications coach, I guess, whether it's
Yeah.
writing or speaking.
Communication, I would say also a tutor, right? Like when I want to read something that's complicated, just put it in there, guides me or gives me a structure to understand things.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think you probably have noticed every now and then when I share my screen during our meetings, you'll see Scotty has Grammarly, but it's always off because for some reason, every time I turn it off or uninstall it, it comes back. I don't know, maybe my laptop's just old. But my main thing is I realized very quickly, I thought, yeah, I'll try Grammarly. Just maybe there's some stuff I've forgotten or I picked up bad habits, and I realized very quickly, yeah, I don't need Grammarly. I still know English grammar just fine, and when Grammarly doesn't like something I'm doing, it's because that's something that I've chosen to do on purpose. For example, maybe it's a casual conversation, and that's my voice versus here's a professional voice. And with a professional voice, then obviously I'm going to sound a certain way. But when I speak casually, well, that's different. I'm going to break a lot of grammatical rules on purpose. Maybe not that I'm doing it consciously, but I'm definitely not trying to observe these rules properly because I'm speaking casually. So I think it's just one of those things. In my case, I treat AI more as here's information that I maybe have known before, but don't remember very well. Or maybe here's some information that I just can't find. So like you said, rather than reading two whole chapters, if I do that, it's for fun. Otherwise, it's give me the answer quick. I gotta get going and get work done. So I would say your use of AI is probably a little bit more creative, like you said, a little bit of a tutor, where I just thought, I don't want to deal with that anymore. That said, I do use Google Translate a lot, so very useful. But yeah, I think the main thing is, um, we have different experiences with AI. And real quick, I just thought everyone just type in the chat very quickly, two or three words max. Just what do you do, or for each of you individually, what would you say is what's the most beneficial thing AI has done for you? In my case, more just finding information finding information quickly. For Venkat, it's more here's a writing or communications tutor. So it will take about 15 seconds. Just type very quickly, 2 or 3 words into the Zoom chat. What is it that AI does well for you? What's your for yourself? What's your most common way of using AI? All right, so we're seeing Vedika learning a new skill. I would say Venkat, that's probably a little bit closer to you. Hemant saying summarize. I would say that's probably a little bit closer to me. Um, Artharv, I would say that's accelerating your learning and projects. That's probably more Venkat's side. Although it's a little bit my side because you do need information. Right now deep. Okay, content enhancement and researching. The researching part, that's definitely me, but I guess do you mind coming on real quick? You don't have to turn on your camera if you don't want to, but what do you mean by content enhancement? Like photography, you touch up the colors or
The content enhancement I mean by enhancing the scripts or enhancing whatever I have in my mind. It's not about the photography and video.
oh, okay, so more general use.
I'm just
Sorry.
surprised that no one wanted to go with vibe coding or something like that.
Well, I guess they're trying to avoid giving away, their secret weapons for next weekend. Um, which actually we'll mention, just earlier today, we confirmed a session with one of our sponsors. We will have a vibe coding workshop. Again, why we want to have talks like this is to help everyone think about when do they want to use AI in certain ways versus, no, I'm just going to do it the old-fashioned way. I don't think there's a right or wrong. It's just a tool. Um, you know, a tool is either good or bad, depending on how you use it. So, um, I think definitely content enhancement that was pretty interesting thing. I feel like Fincat that's probably a little bit closer to what you're saying, a bit of a tutor because it's not exactly in content enhancement for you, but it is a little bit. I think that's closer to what you're saying in the sense of here's something, in this case, maybe your resume or your interview answers, and how do you improve it in some way?
Yeah, that's true. And I know a lot of my friends or you could say colleagues in Georgetown. They do use generative AI for that purpose.
Yeah, and it is a pretty pretty useful skill. I think
Yeah.
um, so one example is sometimes and sometimes this is maybe it's not the right tool, but let's say I ask for an image to be created a certain way. In general, I'm already not good with graphics. And then on top of that, I can see what I want and I can describe it, but the tool might not be able to produce it. Or maybe the tool, I need to get a better version or a better tool. Maybe I'm not describing it as well as I thought. And sometimes maybe I don't know the jargon. For example, Venkat, that one time I was explaining something, I said, Venkat, if we're playing basketball, I tell you do a V cut. What does that mean? And you don't know, you haven't heard that term. But if I explain it to you, the problem is now during the game, that's too much explanation. And that's why I was saying you have to practice outside of the game. So that way, when I say Venkat V cut, you don't get confused thinking, wait, did you say my name twice, but the second time you said it wrong? You would hear Venkat, that's me, V cut, oh. let's do that certain play. And that's where that practice outside the game leads to understanding what to do in the game. And I think the same thing, maybe my issue is I don't know, uh, maybe I'm not telling the software the right thing. I'm trying to give some description rather than just saying, oh, here's the technical term, here's the jargon, and then the software will know exactly what to do. Instead, now it has to try to use, natural language processing, NLP, to determine what I mean and what's my intention. And then from there, figure out, does he mean that in this field or a different field? And maybe that lack of certainty leads to, uh, graphics that don't match what I'm looking for. So, um, yeah, I do think there's a little bit of that coaching aspect. Venkat, I think another thing is, you mentioned how AI can help you right now. What about a few years ago when, I guess, two parts, when you were deciding if you want to go to business school, and two, uh, preparing for the business school interviews or applications and interviews?
Yeah. I'd say interviews were okay because it's always easier to talk to someone and practice because they're usually more of a chat. But then the most grueling part of business school admission process were the essays. And I really do wish, I mean, I wish I had, generative AI with me, or like something like a chat GPT or Gemini with me, because it did take a lot of time to gather my thoughts, put it in a way that's appealing to the admission committee. Um, yeah, so it was hard. It did take a lot of time. So for me to write a 500 word essay, I'd say it probably took me close to a month, meaning it's not like I would have had like 10 or 15 different drafts, but each draft will be structured in a different way, and so on. But now, if I were to
Yeah.
do it, I would assume that I could do it in probably one evening
Yeah, there's
and
that
just as
growth and
effective.
experience and confidence. I think about how sometimes in my life there's something where people will say, "Oh, you actually should hire a lawyer for this, or you should consult someone on doing that." And I'm not saying the advice is bad. I'm saying sometimes I'll do it on my own as a challenge. And it does take more time. It doesn't necessarily give me much benefit other than, oh, I saved that money, but I paid back in, maybe it took a month or a week rather than just pay someone and they do it in 2 days. So there are trade-offs, but for me, sometimes it is, I do enjoy kind of sometimes saying, all right, how do I even read a contract or write a contract? And then I have to spend time thinking about how can I learn that on my own, kind of, not exactly on my own, but without another human being. And that would lead eventually to, oh, I remember in high school when I was starting to learn Spanish for the first time, I would just translate everything from Spanish to English and back. And now I do the same thing, translating legal English into normal English. And it's not going to be 100%, but it'll be close enough for me to at least start understanding what the contract means. And where I see fancy words like aforementioned, heretofore, uh, maybe, maybe there's words I can't think of now. And I don't always know what they mean, but at the least I can figure out, okay, roughly what it means. And especially for that first couple of days, I'll be able to remember that. But yeah, at the same time, it's one of those things where, yeah, I could say AI give me a contract, but then that's where I say, I do want to at least, here's the challenge of me just going and learning. How do I write that on my own? And actually, it's funny because I actually have had Microsoft sign and agree to contracts I've written for myself. Um, so obviously that took time, but it was actually pretty cool to see, oh, wow, I might not be able to write the best contracts, but I can write contracts. So, uh, obviously, I've also since then asked lawyers to take a look and verify certain things for me, explain certain things. But in general, uh, to kind of try it out, it was interesting to do that and see, all right, if I spend enough time, I can definitely make it happen. So I guess Venkat, another question. For you, you were saying you didn't quite have those AI tools available when you're preparing. I guess were did a lot of those tools become available after it was it just after you started business school, or was it halfway through between your first and second year?
It was actually available a little bit earlier. So I came
Hmm.
to business school in 23, but then around that time, ChatGPT was already out there. I tried using ChatGPT, but then I've never used ChatGPT for essays or writing content at that point in time. So at that point in time, I was working like, okay, generate a code, right? So which was full of, I wouldn't say full of errors, but then there were a lot many errors. And then I'm like, okay, that's fine. It's trying something, but then it's not workable. So I didn't really take it seriously at that point in time.
Yeah, that makes sense. The timing of it, uh, I think sometimes it's interesting because you apply to school in one set of circumstances, and then you start school with a different set.
And you also apply almost like a year before you join. So yeah, I mean that hype is not as much as it is right now. It was more of early adopters were trying it. I did try it, but I didn't really make the best use of it at that point in time.
Yeah. In fairness, I think some of it is it takes time and practice to learn something. So you might think now, oh, I didn't use it, I didn't take advantage of it enough, but maybe at the time you're already doing a lot. It's just that, it's kind of like climbing a mountain. When you're at the top, you look down and think, oh, I didn't, that part down there where I was really tired, that wasn't very far. Well, yeah, but you had to get through that part first to get to the top.
That's true.
So I think another thing, we've been talking about kind of our perceptions of AI. I think, we do want to dig a little deeper. What are your thoughts on AI being able to impact very different fields? And then after you talk about your general sense, what do you think of AI impacting specifically medicine or finance?
Sure. So coming to very different fields, right? At least I was, even though I was in semiconductor design, a lot of what you do is writing programming and so on. So I did spend a lot of my time at work looking at Stack Overflow on, okay, how do you fix this problem and so on. But then now AI has totally wiped out Stack Overflow, I would say. You can obviously go to ChatGPT, even though you're not generating code, you can have these questions, get very familiar with like the syntaxes and so on. So I would say it really changed the way in which a lot of fields work. And I can totally imagine how a newer graduate who's starting from school would rely more on ChatGPT than traditionally what I'm sure even you would have used Stack Overflow quite a bit, right, Scotty? Some of the new graduates might not even know what the Stack Overflow is. So that's the part how I think it's affecting, these fields overall. But coming more specifically for medicine and finance, probably not the best expert in medicine, but then a lot of people are using AI for gene sequencing, and wherein I read a paper where what took I'm not, I could be wrong here. So many genetists or people working on PhDs on genetics, their entire thesis, AI could do it in a very short time frame. So that's amazing, right? So we have the possibility of better medicines and thereby curing diseases for all of us. So that's super exciting. And finance. I mean, in what I've seen in finance, the data is distributed. So a lot of times, what a financial analyst does is looking together four or five different sources of information, putting together a pitch deck, and that I think AI is good in, wherein it can take all of these information and synthesize it in a meaningful way, and it's going to make people a lot more efficient. So yeah,
Yeah.
I probably would assume we would need fewer financial analysts in the future, but then that remains to be seen.
Yeah, and I think of it as it's not necessarily that there will be fewer jobs, it's that there will be newer jobs.
Newer jobs, yeah,
Um,
correct.
for example, For most of history, our ancestors, we might need 100 people to work the same field to grow enough food for 100 people. And then someone invents some better fertilizer or a stronger tool, or they redesign the field to be more efficient. And then suddenly, oh, we only need 80 people to grow food for 100. The other 20 can now focus on cooking the food better. Or, there's three of them, they're really good at money. Okay, take this surplus, sell it somewhere. And then eventually, there's that kid who's able to learn some things and then start teaching, when they're an adult, they teach some of the younger kids. And then one of them is really good at math or science. And then they figure out, hey, what if we create this new tool and then suddenly you only need 20 people to work the field of 100, or work the field to feed 100. And over time, we get to stuff like here's the steam engine, right? Now we have tractors, and I mean, just think about how, I mean, Venkat, for your grandparents to even imagine flying, you know, and then on top of that, to fly to a different country to get an education there. Um, you know, for my grandparents, I mean, the idea of, I built iPhone apps for a long time. That was my primary job in San Francisco. You know, I still have an older relative who's illiterate, uh, and suddenly, oh yeah, here's this small box that you can put in your pocket, and it has more processing power than NASA used to go to the moon, for example. Now I can just type in Google Maps, take me to the moon, and every now and then they'll change it, but I think when I was in college, '05 to '09, if you wanted Google directions to Europe, at least from the US, it would tell you to go to New York City and kayak to London, or something like that. And then I know for a stretch, if you typed in going to Mordor, it would simply return an error and say one does not simply walk into Mordor. And sometimes the movie comes out, Google, or not Google, Uber might change the car symbols to X-wings for Star Wars and stuff like that. And yeah, you think about how much technology has changed. I think um, it's just one of those things that speeds up a lot. So I think we should have a little bit of time for the next speaker. So does anyone in the audience want to ask a quick question? Great. I think what we'll do for now is I will go ahead and we'll stay on this Zoom, but I'll go ahead and end the live stream, and that will be one session. We'll start live stream again for the next speaker. Everyone feel free to go take a quick break, use the restroom, get some water, maybe grab a snack, whatever you want. And obviously when you're ready, come back to the Zoom and we'll go ahead and welcome the next speaker. And then we'll talk about I believe blockchain, right? Yes. The next one we'll talk about blockchain. So yeah, everyone go do your thing, take some time and take a quick break, and we'll see you in a few minutes.
Hi, everyone.